Hello and welcome to Levels Plus Whenever, episode 142. And today will be a Summer Games Fest roundup, catching up on all the things. Nintendo did not do a direct. That was kind of what I was holding out on. They just announced Splatoon on their Nintendo Today app. So we won't be including that here because it was so separate from what is considered Summer Game Fest. But I've got 15 games that I think stood out among the hundreds that were shown off, and I'm not joking, literally hundreds, across multiple shows. And I want to talk briefly about Sony, Microsoft, and Summer Game Fest conferences as their own entities to kind of determine what worked and what didn't this year. Alright, so before we dive into these trailers, let's talk about that. Sony had the best state of play they've ever had, in my opinion. They knocked it out of the park. If you watched the reaction that I did, I only edited out two things, and that was primarily because they were being published by Embracer companies. So that says an awful lot about their quality of titles. Marvel Tokon is easily the hypest thing that was announced during the entire show, in my opinion, but I've also got the Ninja Gaiden Ragebound trailer included in my top 15, but there was a bunch of really great stuff all around. Silent Hill F is looking really good. Pragmata was shown after a long hiatus, and that looks really interesting. This pirate game, Sea of Remnants, looks really neat. I think that's going to be a pretty cool game. God, there was so much there that's good. Just watch my reaction, because I genuinely can't remember it all. Like I said, there was hundreds of games at this thing. Ghost of Yokai, although that was more of a teaser for a bigger, more focused state of play for that later. But on the whole, Sony killed it. Like, absolutely brilliant presentation. Microsoft had a pretty good presentation. Probably their best one that I could remember. And I don't usually watch theirs, but now that they're getting increasingly third party, I kind of feel like I need to. They had a really solid indie announcement with At Fate's End by the Spiritfarer devs at Thunder Lotus that I'm super pumped about. They also showed off Beast of Reincarnation, a new Game Freak game that's completely separate from anything they do with Pokemon, which is probably a good thing. I thought that was really cool. A new Age of Mythology expansion was shown off, and I still need to pick that up at some point. Planet of Lana 2 looks really great. I think the Clockwork Revolution and the Outer Worlds 2 are FPSs that are in my wheelhouse, and I'm very picky about it. So I'm curious about both of those. That's about what I remember being like the high-end excitement stuff. There was just still a lot of things that I'm not that enthusiastic about. That's okay. Summer Game Fest, the anchor of this entire conference bonanza, was easily the weak link of everything that I saw. If it wasn't for Capcom being there, it would not have really been worth watching. And if we look at the reaction that I took of it, I took a 2-hour reaction and condensed it to under 10 minutes. That's how much I didn't really care for the majority of the things that they showed. Obviously, Resident Evil Requiem is an amazing announcement. Seeing more of Onimusha was wonderful. And the Street Fighter 6 announcement with Kenny Omega cosplaying the characters was really fun. I'm actually pretty hype about that season. Alex is my least excitement that I have for that. But I wanted to see Crimson Viper come back so bad, and I'm so excited that she is. Ingrid is just fascinating because of her legacy. And I am always a fan of Sagat showing up in a Street Fighter game. So I'm really pumped that those three are coming back. Alex is fine. I don't have any major beef with Alex. I just really want Makoto to come in, and I will be disappointed at every other Street Fighter 3 character that they put in over Makoto, although Elena's a lot of fun. So yeah, Capcom did so much to carry that. Seeing Nina the Harrower there was fantastic. As you can see, that's in my top 5. But most everything else came from the various indie presentations or other smaller shows on my list. So what we're going to do is we'll look at each of these real fast. I don't know if I'll go through the whole trailer, especially the Resident Evil, although I could talk probably about Resident Evil for almost 4 minutes. And show off why I think they're neat. We're going to have the audio off for them. I just don't really want to be dealing with copyright stuff. I don't remember what might have licensed music and what might not. It just makes life easier for me. So let's go ahead and get geared up for that. Alright, so starting off is Marble Tokon, the ArcSys Marble 4x4 tag fighting game that looks stunning, as Arc System Works is ought to do with their stuff anymore. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody was ready for it. It got, in my opinion, some of the wildest reactions through the entire week of content. I am so excited. Little sad for Capcom because I have a feeling that they might not have known that Marvel decided to go hang out with Sony and ArcSys to do this. It looks so good. It looks so fun. It doesn't look like an MVC game, but it looks enough like one that I'm very excited about it. It's clearly going to have a different button scheme. We've got 3 assists that we're going to have to manage with a 4th team member that's acting as a leader. Sony has said that there's going to be ways to just play as one character with the assists, or you could tag in other people, so your play style could be whatever you want. Let's briefly talk about the roster reveal so far. So we have 6 characters that are very familiar to Marvel vs. Capcom fans. Captain America and Iron Man, Storm and Doctor Doom, and then Ghost Rider and Spider-Man. This is a different Ghost Rider than the one that's appeared in MVC, but essentially acting very similarly. And then we've got newcomers Ms. Marvel and Star-Lord. So we've already got a pretty interesting beginning roster. But if this is a 4x4 tag fighter, they've got to have a considerable number of characters, because otherwise it's going to get very boring. Very quick. I continue to just be awestruck by how beautiful this game is. And like my brain is trying to process everything. I am so pumped about this game. I think that ArcSys is a fantastic dev that is going to do these characters justice in their own distinctive way, which that's kind of their mission, is to do this an ArcSys way, not necessarily a Western influenced way or a Capcom influenced way. This is theirs. This is their Marvel fighter. So I'm pretty pumped about it. I hope to see more about it soon. I'm like dying for more information. So I imagine at EVO, which is a Sony-owned event, we will get another beefy reveal of characters. I hope Scarlet Witch shows up. That's my wish at the moment. I think she would be great in a fighting game if they got the right people to think about how to reimagine her powers into a fighting game. I've already seen some distinct differences in how ArcSys is considering characters. So like Spider-Man, for example, has a counter system based on Spidey sense, which is a really cool idea that Capcom never implemented themselves outside of a super in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which isn't a counter super, but it plays on his spider sense. Doom seems to be more of a grappling type in this game. So I like how they're kind of reimagining characters. I will say Iron Man and Storm and Captain America do seem very similar. It's kind of hard to imagine them in a different context, but I'm sure they've got moves and such that are distinctly theirs in the Tokani universe. Alright, this is the Japanese trailer for Resident Evil Requiem, but it shouldn't have any major differences outside of possible English subtitles. So, Resident Evil Requiem. I almost need to pause this because this is going to be hard to talk about in extensive detail while it's moving, because I'm going to want to watch it and look for details. That's what I've been doing every time I watch this thing. As of this moment, we know that it stars Grace Ashcroft, the daughter of Resident Evil Outbreak reporter Alyssa Ashcroft, who has been murdered 8 years ago in the game's timeline. Grace is an FBI agent, and the game starts you out, or at least the demo that was playable at Summer Game Fest, with Grace strapped to a gurney with her blood being drained by an IV. She breaks open the IV to get a sharp edge to cut out of the gurney, and then is being chased through this civic center that appears to be abandoned by a Elisa Trevor-like 20-foot tall creature. Fans have noticed that the sounds that she makes is very much the Resident Evil remake sound bank for Lisa Trevor. And she never was killed, so to speak. She jumped off of an edge when you defeated her in Remake. So it's interesting to see where this all could be going, just based on the gameplay loop. But Grace is not your action hero type. She's not Leon or Jill or Chris. Thank God she's not Chris. She does have some skills with weaponry, but the demo doesn't really offer her that opportunity. She doesn't get a gun. So she's basically reliant on what she finds in the environment, which is mostly broken glass that she can throw. And it's definitely more puzzle based in terms of I gotta figure out a way to get out of this building and not die in the process. But it's a very dark building, so there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here, and it could also be played in either first or third person via a menu swap. So it's not something you can just click in like a stick and switch between modes. And I think there's benefits and downsides to being able to do that. What I've been hearing is first person is really good at building that survival horror tension, especially when you're being chased. Third person might be more helpful to be able to be more spatially aware of what's going on in your surroundings and being able to see what you can pick up. But it might lose some of that personal, like, I'm experiencing this through Grace's head, feelings that first person might provide. So, very cool that they're offering both options. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because this is all just setup and we kind of talked about that setup. So let's go ahead and get into the actual moments here where Grace wakes up and is in said gurney. Fan theory, because I've watched a couple prominent RE people talk about this game. So Grace might be a very interesting character in the lore of Resident Evil because Alyssa in Outbreak, in her ending, was able to get a cure to the T-virus strain that she was infected with. And through her daughter, might have passed that immunity on. Some of the speculation that I've seen, which I think is really interesting, is that Alyssa was murdered by the apparent antagonist in this game, which is, let me skip ahead a little bit to this guy, potentially, who is currently infected and looking for a cure, and is like a certain type of infection that is very unique because it seemingly has kept him relatively human, but is still infected. And Grace could be special because of being born with that immunity, and Alyssa might have had hers fade because of it being administered instead of being transferred. So who knows for sure what is exactly going on. There's a lot of interesting theory that I just think is really captivating. I do love the fact that we're going to be in Raccoon City in its nuclear fallout period, it seems. Really cool idea to come back here. There's so much they could do. They could go back to the Spencer Mansion, which could just be like the ruins of that building because it blows up at the end of Resident Evil 1/remake. But there is a lot of cityscape that is still standing out here in Raccoon City, despite the gigantic crater. And we do get a chance to see that RPD is not entirely gone. So Capcom is being crafty with reusing a couple assets, but giving it a new context. We've got this guy here, don't know who he is, what his importance is, but we are seeing some interesting stuff happen. This politician being murdered basically by our antagonist, it seems. We have this person just walking down a hallway rather nonchalantly. Don't know who they are, what they're about, but that is our Lisa, possibly. They are in the trailer, they're in the demo. Interesting game. I'm very excited to learn more about Requiem, and I don't have too long to wait because it's coming out in February of next year. So I'm really excited about the future of Resident Evil. This being so Outbreak focused makes me wonder if those games are going to get re-released beforehand. Next up is At Fate's End, and this looks amazing. Oh my god. Thunder Lotus are really stepping up their animation from Spiritfarer. This is an incredible looking game, and I thought Spiritfarer was an incredible looking game. But like, there's just so much great little animation touches. But this is a combat-oriented game. You have to fight things. But there's also a really fascinating layer of narrative structure around it all. So, your main character here has a family, and you need to confront them. And you have a spiritual sword that lives inside you. But look at this animation, it is sick. And you get into duels against various family members, and utilizing some cards for actions, You also get into conversations mid-battle, which I think is just really interesting. That will determine the way the plot moves forward. But Thunder Lotus is really flexing here, and I think it's a really, really fascinating looking game. And it is coming to PlayStation 5, so I will be picking this up at post-haste and probably buying it in multiple formats unless it comes out physically right at the start. Really excited. Next up is Wander Stars. This is a role-playing game with, looks like some board-playing elements, or board game elements, with stunning animation, being a throwback to like 80s era animation. But you get to combine words together to form your attacks. So if you want to have a super fast punch, you combine the words together to fight. You build up stats, you get treasure along the way, which are words, and you can then like do like a wide attack, which will hit a whole bunch of enemies. And then you also can recruit some of the people that you fight against to be on your side. It looks really amazing. I am so pumped about this game, and I remember being pretty excited about it last year, and can't wait to see more of it. It's coming out in like a month or two, so it is very close. Mina the Hollower, Yacht Club's new game that has nothing immediately to do with Shovel Knight. So this is really their second IP that they've created themselves. This is coming out on Halloween, and it looks really appropriate, but this Zelda Link's Awakening-like is stunning and beautiful and looks super fun. I can't wait. This is going to be a grand time, I could already tell. Like, Yacht Club has already proven themselves with the myriad of Shovel Knight games that they've made. Shown off how experimental they are and how risk-taking they are, and this is a big shift for them. So I'm really excited to see what this game ultimately turns out to be in a few months. Constance. This was high on my list last year. I hadn't seen too much of it in the year since, but here it is. It popped up somewhere. At one of the indie shows, and is a fantastic looking Metroidvania that uses ink. But we actually get to see a little bit more about how its story functions work and how its gameplay works together. And I'm just pretty excited about this game. I think it's one of the best looking Metroidvanias I've seen. It's just very clean. So I hope that it turns out well. Demon's School. This game's also getting close to release finally. And it's looking really good. I mean, it looked really good when I first saw it 2-3 years ago. But this actually is showing off a lot more of how the overall structure of the game works. And it's pretty much an indie Persona-like is what I could refer to it as, with a tactical gameplay engine for the combat versus a more traditional role-playing one that Persona uses. I think this looks amazing. I'm so glad that we've got a summer release date planned for this. I've been waiting for it for a long time, and it's not much longer now. Sea of Remnants. This was a shocking announcement. NetEase is developing this with one of their studios. This game is wild because it really just seems to be whatever genre you want it to be, it can be. And thankfully, my biggest concern, which is you're always this guy in the two trailers with this, was relieved when I saw the customization aspect in the other trailer. But this just looks incredible. I just like piratey themes. It's a lot of fun for me. And everything about what I've seen about this game looks great. There's just a nice art style that's realistic but not going on here. It's just beautiful looking. Ship combat looks like it will be pretty fun. This mermaid element here seems to have some sense of a role-playing combat engine in here as well. But I'm just really intrigued. I got to see a more gameplay-focused demo that just kind of showed this guy wandering around, talking to people, and getting into like a fight and all that. I just think this game looks really cool, and I hope it turns out well. Absolum. So, Lizard Cube is working on Shinobi. Guard Crush is working on this, and I gotta say, as good as Shinobi looks, Guard Crush's gameplay loop that they created for Streets of Rage 4 is probably something I'm a little bit more enthusiastic about, because this just looks like a good time. They're working with a different animation studio, because, like I said, Lizard Cube is working on Shinobi. But it's working out really well. It's a gorgeous looking game. I'm very pumped about this, and I think it's coming out in another month or two. So there is not too much longer to wait on this. Shinobi will also be out in a couple months. It didn't make my list because while it did have a brief bit somewhere in Summer Game Fest, I've seen it a lot, and I feel like I know what to expect. This was the first time I've seen this game, and I'm pretty excited about it. Neverway. This is a really fascinating looking game. Pixel artist of Celeste is working with Disaster Piece, and I'm sure a few other people, to create an original game about this young person who has a sim life during the day and nightmares where she has to fight off a whole bunch of nasty looking stuff at night. Really captivating looking game. So much going on. Sprite work is beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous pixels with excellent use of color. We're going to have another game that is also doing incredible pixel work with limited colors coming up here shortly. But this truly impressed me. I'm really excited to learn more about this game, and hope we don't have too much longer to wait. I can't remember. Yeah, we're in wish list mode, so no date, so I'm hoping we see more soon. Speaking of, Everdeep Aurora is the other game I was just talking about that has a beautiful pixel style with a limited color palette. This would probably be higher on my list, but it really is focusing more on the town element and showing off the animation more so than the digging gameplay. So this kind of seems like a SteamWorld Dig type of game, but with a much more menacing art style and aesthetic going on. I am pretty pumped about this. I remember seeing it last year and going, wow, this really stands out. I still think it's a very stunning looking game, and I'd like to see more about it soon. Lost and Found Co. I remember this being at Wholesome Direct last year, and I think I said when I was reacting to it earlier that I got books that were basically like Where's Waldo likes as a kid. and just having these huge environments to wander around in and being and looking for stuff, but also having like character interactions and all that. I think that's really cool, and I'm really excited about it. So I think this is going to be a really fun time. The fact that you can also design your own house is really cool. I think this game looks really charming and fun, and I'm looking forward to being able to play it soon. Ninja Gaiden Ragebound by the blasphemous devs at Game Kitchen. This was a great trailer because this really shows off how fluid it is. We are eating well with ninja action 2D games this year. I do think that this having a dual character setup and having the soundtrack of Ninja Gaiden is going to be a little bit more of an edge for me personally over Shinobi, but I've heard really good things about Shinobi following Summer Game Fest as well. So that's probably like number 16, honestly. My only concern about this game is it going to kick my ass too much for me to like it? So I'm going to be paying attention to reviews to kind of get a sense of difficulty scale. But I think this is a great comeback for Ninja Gaiden. It's probably the only way I'd be interested in Ninja Gaiden at this stage of my life. So I'm hoping it's really good. Dosa Divas. I was intrigued by this game last year. It was great to see it come back this year with some more plot elements. This is by the Thirsty Suitors devs. And I not only think this is a really cool looking game aesthetically, but it's about a fast food company taking over the world and people forgetting how to cook, and the loss of that soul of making food. Which, you know, I've been kind of feeling that lately myself. Just being so busy to actually cook things for myself. So I feel like having an RPG talking about this and having a really fun art style with good writing, hopefully the writing in here seems solid from what I could see, and building relationships and all that fun stuff, I think it will be fun. So I'm pretty excited about this. Alright, last but not least is Beast Reincarnation. Game Freak doing a Princess Mononoke themed game. Kinda. I mean, it's kind of hard not to look at this and not think of Princess Mononoke, especially when you got a beast that's corrupted like this, killing the landscape. So, I'm not complaining. I think that they're doing something that is distinctly theirs, but the inspiration is pretty obvious. You got a white wolf that's hanging out with you too. I mean, come on. But this game looks like it could be a lot of fun. My only concern, honestly, is Game Freak has not had the most stable game engines the last gen, primarily looking at their work with Pokemon. Is that just Pokemon Company pushing them too hard so they can't actually optimize anything that they're doing? Or is it Game Freak themselves? That is the question. So this is going to be a really good litmus test for Switch 2, I think, as well. And my hope is that this game is good, and because it looks interesting, I'm intrigued by it. This futuristic Princess Mononoke. I'm sorry, Game Freak, that's what your game is. So yeah, that is all the things. So yeah, let's call this episode there. You've seen what I thought stood out. I'm really excited to play all these games and give them a go. Hope they all turn out well. And again, kudos to Sony for finally getting their act together for a good showcase, almost start to finish. And as I said in my reaction, Jeff, try harder. And I will even give the smallest of kudos to Microsoft for actually having some things that I got kind of excited about. Getting At Fate's End was a really good get, in my opinion, although I'm a little sad a lot of people aren't talking about it. and they're deluding themselves by not. I have a lot of faith in the Spiritfarer team after that game, that they're going to make a really good game. Will it be Spiritfarer? No, obviously not. It's kind of the same deal that I felt with Greece and Neva. I had to put all of my love and affection and like admiration of Greece aside to try to appreciate Neva on its own terms, and I'm glad I was able to do that. I'm going to be having to do the same thing with that Fate's End, because Spiritfarer is a truly impactful game in terms of emotions for me, much like Greece was, but this is not that. This is a different game outside of that context and universe, doing something distinctly its own, and I gotta judge it that way. So, lots of good stuff here. I'm really hopeful all of it turns out well, as I said, and we'll be back with some different stuff outside of Switch 2 reactions and trailer reactions and all that. What a busy week that was. I did not intend this to come out so late, but sometimes you just can't control that. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you soon. Take care, friends.